Rene, the top cop who put his badge on the line for justice.
You know the name Doug Poppa?
Yes, I do. God bless Doug Poppa, an honest cop.
I was elated, of course, but then as he testified, I was somewhat concerned for him, because I knew that they were probably going to crucify that man.
Sometimes the truth has a price. That may be the lesson of a Virginia police officer who says, in trying to do the right thing, he ended up paying for it.
The message you're sending is, see, we did it, Doug. You don't come out, you don't buck the system. No matter what the reason is, you just can basically keep your mouth shut. But if I wouldn't do it all over again, I would take the badge and I would leave it on somebody's desk and get out of police work. Because the day I can't tell the truth because somebody's pressuring me, and the day the system doesn't want me to tell the truth because somebody's pressuring me, is the day I'd leave the badge on the desk and walk away.
Poppa was fired for insubordination. One man who confronted truth and consequences.
From Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Doug Poppa, Truth and Consequences podcast. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 116 of the Truth and Consequences podcast from Las Vegas, Thursday, May 5th, 2022. I'm your host, Doug Poppa, independent investigative journalist and former law enforcement officer. Today's topic, I'll read here in a second, but involves the Northwest Area Command section of the Las Vegas Valley. I said in the last couple of podcasts I was tied up in some other stuff that had more information. I got a lot of information coming in on different things going on in the Las Vegas Metro Police Department, but I'm going to hit on a couple of them here tonight, and hopefully this podcast won't be that long, but it may be, okay? First of all, I'm going to get myself on the small box here. I want to put some photographs up on the screen here. Get me up over here. Okay. According to police sources, two Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department police officers, Rene Armstrong and John Abel, are under Internal Affairs Bureau investigation. This is a photograph of Officer Rene Armstrong. Officer John Abel is on the executive board of the Las Vegas Police Protective Association, the union that represents the rank-and-file officers on the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Abel is the Director of Government Affairs for the union. There's a more recent photo of him. I was told that last month, April, Officer Armstrong responded to a disturbance call at a bar in the Northwest Area Command. According to police sources, there was a motorcycle club inside the establishment, and it was later determined from Officer Armstrong's body camera video footage that Armstrong's actions were contrary to what a police officer investigating the complaint should have done. I was told, I don't have my notes here in front of me on that, but I was told that on her body cam footage, it appears she may have been aiding and abetting somehow this motorcycle group that was in there, either to assist them to get out or something like that. That's basically what I was told. Police sources stated that one of Armstrong's family members, who was not present at the bar, has an association with the motorcycle club that was in this bar, and that Officer Armstrong's actions may have been influenced by that. Armstrong was transferred after that incident to the Enterprise Area Command. Let me get back up on the screen here. So after that incident happened in the Northwest Area Command where she patrols, she was transferred to the Enterprise Area Command, another patrol division in the Las Vegas Valley. Sources said that Armstrong was later brought into the Internal Affairs Bureau for an interview. Prior to the interview was conducted, a union rep, who was Mr. Officer John Abel from the Las Vegas Police Protective Association, allegedly, from what I'm told, coached her on what to say. That's what I was told. Internal Affairs Bureau detectives later questioned Abel and he denied the allegations that he was coaching or telling Officer Armstrong how to act or what to say. However, I was told that a review of the video and audio system that's installed in the Internal Affairs Bureau interview room. I was told there was cameras on each side of the walls, and it's already recorded, so they do their interviews in there. Where Abel and Armstrong were conferring before the detectives came in, conflicted with what Abel told Internal Affairs. And I was actually told that when they initially interviewed Officer Abel, remember he's a union rep, that's why he was there with her. He basically denied that he coached her or whatever it is they accused him of. And when they reviewed the surveillance footage from inside the Internal Affairs Bureau interview room, it conflicted with what Abel told the detectives, and basically, in essence, with what I was told, he lied to the Internal Affairs Bureau detectives. Now, Armstrong was placed on administrative leave in the last week of April. And I was told that John Abel, at least when I was given this information, was not placed on administrative leave at that time, and I don't know if he had been later. But I did hear from a source that Internal Affairs Bureau Lieutenant, a gentleman named Steve Ryback, was extremely furious with the union rep, police officer John Abel. So that's what we got there. And like I said, don't know if he's on suspension, administrative leave, but Officer Armstrong is. And these internal affairs investigations, I mean, I know from personal experience, from being a cop, but when I was told can take weeks, if not months, to complete. So she's on administrative leave with pay from what I understand. Now, we're going to go to a different part of the Las Vegas Valley. Other sources at the Convention Center Area Command. For you people that don't know, the Convention Center Area Command is the patrol section, the patrol division that covers the Las Vegas Strip. So, according to what sources are telling me, from what I heard, crime must be non-existent in the Convention Center Area Command because of what I'm about to talk about, what I was told by police sources. And this is out of the Convention Center Area Command. Let me get some photographs up here for a second. Put me up over here. Okay. I'm going to play a short video clip, and the officers that are depicted in this video clip photographs are Las Vegas Metro Police Officer Michael Garces, I think it's Garces, and Ricardo Lara. And also depicted in these photographs is retired Undersheriff Kevin McMahill, who many of you know is running for Clark County Sheriff. My sources told me that Officer Lara and Officer Garces are on the campaign staff of Kevin McMahill. There's no problem with that. But there's a problem because I was told they are conducting campaign business for Officer McMahill while they are on duty, and I'll speak to that in a minute. Let me get some things up here so you can get some photos and know who the hell I'm talking about here. It's Officers Gosser and Lara, and you can see there's some pictures there. They're posing with, if I get my face off the screen here for many of you able to see this, with McMahill. And anyway, let me run that again here. So we get some photographs here. Oop. And run it again. Okay. Now, just to be clear, because I don't want to say something here that's not true, these photographs, get back up on the screen here, all this stuff here, that's two of them in uniform that a source gave me pictures that's them performing their job. They're not campaigning at that time. And those other photographs, obviously, when they're off duty. And like I said, there's no problem with campaigning for Tom Roberts is running. He's a retired deputy chief. Stan Height's run for sheriff. He's a retired sergeant. You can campaign for anybody that you want, okay? But according to sources, like I said, Officers Garces and Lara, they're assigned to what's called the Community-Oriented Policing Squad at the Convention Center Area Command. And a lot of cops there are pissed off because, from what I was told, they are conducting campaign business on the taxpayer's dime when they're supposed to be working and performing their police functions. And it has to do with, and officers have got, I guess, social media texts from them while they're working related to Kevin McMahill for sheriff. So they're campaigning and sending this social media stuff out while they're working, and I guess they got an office at the Convention Center Area Command, and a lot of cops aren't happy about it. But I'm going to bring something up here in a second. Now, I was told that this is Joshua Bitsko. He's Bitsko, Bitsko. He's the captain in charge of the Convention Center Area Command. And from what I was told, this is no secret what they're doing, and that he knows about this, but he doesn't want to do anything. And you got to understand something, ladies and gentlemen. When you have an elected sheriff running a police department, as is the case with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and you have these elections every 4 years, there's a lot of cops, and in this case also that I was told, that these two guys, I guess, actively, they're making no secret that they are supporting Kevin McMahill for sheriff. I think, like I said, I was told they're on his staff, okay, of the campaign for sheriff, Kevin McMahill. That's fine. But there's a lot of cops who are supporting Tom Roberts or supporting Stan Height, and they basically keeping quiet because they're afraid that if Kevin McMahill gets in, they'll be retaliated against. And we don't know if he's going to get in. He may not get in. Tom Roberts may get in. Stan Height may get in. But these guys make it known who they're campaigning for. Everybody knows, from what I was told, that they're on Kevin McMahill's campaign for sheriff. But the cops are upset because when they're supposed to be working, they're taking care of campaign business on police time when they're being paid by the taxpayers to be out there patrolling. So that to me, that's a problem as a citizen. And I guess Captain Bitsko doesn't want to do anything. I heard that he's also supporting Kevin McMahill. But like some cops told me, who are you going to complain to? You're not going to complain to Sheriff Lombardo because corrupt, lying, incompetent Sheriff Lombardo, who's running for governor, is supporting Kevin McMahill, who I've said in other podcasts is a documented liar and a documented pervert. So who do you go to? So they said it's just the way it is, but a lot of cops are pissed off at the Convention Center Area Command, and that is the patrol section that patrols the Las Vegas Strip. So got that out. Sources were telling me. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but that's what they told me, so take it for what it's worth. Next thing I want to talk about here, going back to the Airport Bureau. When I talk in these podcasts about the Airport Bureau, I'm talking about Las Vegas Metro police officers assigned to Harry Reid International Airport that was formerly called McCarran International Airport. They changed the name a couple of months ago. It's now Harry Reid International Airport. So Airport Bureau are cops who come to work every day and only work at the airport property inside, and then they have what's called ramp officers that ride around in cars, but that's their duty. Just like they would be assigned to any other area command in the valley, they're assigned to the Airport Bureau. So you remember, let me get this up on the screen, from episode 113. That's 8 up over here. Let's get this up for a second. In episode 113, it was titled, LVMPD Officer's Negligence Caused Alleged Child Sexual Predator from Being Caught. And I published that. It was a breaking story exclusive to this podcast on April 28th. It was published. Okay. And you go back and look at the podcast. I'm not going to rehash the whole thing, but in essence was there was a child on an incoming flight to Las Vegas. The child was groped, I believe, in the groin area. The crew called in the police before they landed. And anyway, this officer, Diego Garcia, because he had his head up his butt or he's just negligent or lazy, whatever, kind of blew off the call. And when the other officer called in, the description, when he went to interview the victim and the passengers, the suspect passenger, like I said in that podcast, was not stopped, completely walked away and got away without any police intervention. And I said in that podcast that the guy was a passenger, so they would be able to track him on the manifest where he was seated, video from TSA when the flight boarded, when the flight departed. They should be, when he gets off the plane, he departed the plane. And I said that the FBI's jurisdiction is any crime that occurs on an aircraft and flight or on an aircraft. And I guess sources familiar with the investigation have recently told me that the suspect has been identified. Okay, so at least they identified the guy, and whether they arrested him yet, I don't know. If I find out, I'll let you know. But it's something that shouldn't have happened. And I broke that story, and I guess Sheriff Lombardo went completely ballistic and started threatening the captain at the airport, and who's talking to Doug Poppa and breaking all these stories, and the cops are threatened. They're going to have there, from what I understand, that they're threatening them that they're going to get search warrants for all the cops' cell phones, which to me is just absolutely bullshit, because you don't get in order to get a search warrant for somebody's phone, you have to commit a crime. These guys didn't do a crime. Okay, they could say that leaking, if everybody's leaking information, and I don't know why Lombardo thinks the information's coming from the airport. Okay, this buffoon for sheriff doesn't seem to get it, that some of his closest friends can't stand this guy's guts. So a lot of people know what goes on in the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and there's leaks all over the place. It just so happens that sources, police sources, talk to me. Okay, they're obviously not talking to any other journalists in Las Vegas, because none of these stories are being broken by other journalists from Las Vegas. I'm breaking these stories as an independent investigative journalist. So every time I do a story and break a story, Lombardo goes completely apeshit, for lack of a better words, and starts threatening people, and you want, who's leaking the leaks. This guy Lombardo should be more concerned about his malfeasance and his misfeasance and his cover-ups while he was tenure as sheriff, and even before he was sheriff, because he wants to be governor. Okay, I told you, this guy is a documented liar. He's corrupt and he's incompetent. So when cops leak information to me, police sources, okay, he gets upset. Just like he went berserk, I heard when I broke that story last year about the cover-up of the 12-year-old girl who was raped in 2019 because of police incompetence from the detectives in the sexual assault in that case, because the suspect should have been arrested in 2018 after he attacked and kidnapped and raped an 11-year-old girl. They didn't do it, and in 2012, the suspect kidnapped and raped a 12-year-old girl because of police incompetence. I broke, that's a 3-part story, 3 separate podcasts. I broke that story. The suspect is coming up in September for court and for trial, and he goes crazy, just like all these other stories. The lieutenant who didn't come to work and built the department out of thousands of dollars in money because he just decided he was going to stay home. And I broke that story. And the falsification of the police reports. It just goes on and on and on. So, Lombardo, as far as I'm concerned, you know where you can go, okay? And you know what I think of you, and that's not going to change. And the same thing goes for your cohort for all these years, your undersheriff, Kevin McMahill, another corrupt, documented liar, and according to the police investigation that I covered and broke some of those documents, a documented pervert, okay, going back to 1995. So, that's just the way it goes, Sheriff. People are going to talk because you think when the people shake your hand in your department and they like you behind your back, they think you're a buffoon. So that's just the way it is. I can say that because I talk to these people and they can't tell you because they don't want to lose their job. So I'm telling you now, for them, that the people that you think are close to you, that admire you, they think you're a buffoon. And the other thing, ladies and gentlemen, you got to go listen. You got to put it in this perspective, okay? Lombardo is running for governor. let's say this corrupt documented liar gets in for the governor of Nevada. There's people in the department that want positions, that want to retire. Lombardo could put in who's going to be in charge of the Nevada State Police. The Nevada Highway Patrol was just changed to the Nevada State Police designation, I think a month or two ago. As governor, he can put in whoever he wants. And there's rumors in the department of everybody backstabbing each other. And it goes the same thing now with the sheriff's race. You got Kevin McMahill, retired under sheriff. Joe Lombardo's number 2 guy, covered everything up with Lombardo during his tenure with Lombardo. Did a lot of things even before that, and I talked about it on podcasts. There's more stuff coming out. But you have retired Deputy Chief Tom Roberts. He's running for sheriff. And retired Sergeant Stan Hite. Okay? You got 3 people running. So everybody's like keeping quiet. Some people are backstabbing people because, hey, if my friend Kevin McMahill gets in, maybe I'm going to do this. There's a lot of dissension right now because I said in the other podcast that there's rumors that former Assistant Sheriff Todd Fasulo, who works for the Wynn Resorts and Security right now, Vice President, that if McMahill gets in, he's going to put him as his number 2 in some capacity, either a civilian or sworn position based on the problems with the retirement system. And a lot of people are pissed off about that because they can't stand Todd Fasulo. There's other people that want that position. So you got to understand, other people keep it quiet because McMahill may lose his ass in the election and not be the next sheriff. So nobody wants to piss anybody off. And that's why I said I have a problem with an elected sheriff running the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, because every 4 years you got to go through this nonsense. Anyway, that's what I had to say. So anyway, let's get back to Officer Diego Gutierrez from the Airport Bureau from episode 113. And I said I was just recently informed they identified the suspect, which is a good thing. I believe the FBI got in the middle of that. Now, back in that podcast, ladies and gentlemen, I said that Officer Gutierrez, a 30-year veteran of the police department, was told that he needs to complete remedial training at the Southeast Area Command. And then once that's done, he would be then transferred back to the Airport Bureau. Well, sources at the Southeast Area Command state that Gutierrez is now on day shift patrol in the Southeast Area Command. And I think that's a good move on his part because it's May. I mean, next month, June and stuff, July, the temperatures are going to go up to 100 degrees out here. So, you do it now, and then he's supposedly going to be put back at the Airport Bureau. And hopefully when this training is for his sake, I mean, I don't care about that. I personally think the guy should be fired, okay, or forced to resign for what he did for not stopping an alleged child sexual predator. So this BS of this guy staying on the department, to me, pisses me off. And it pisses a lot of cops off. But he's there for whatever reason, political, union, whatever, doesn't want to retire. I don't even know what really happened to this guy other than remedial training. 30-year guy, you got to go remedial training. But he's doing it now because I guess when the temperature goes up to 110, he'll be back in the comfort of the air condition inside the airport. So he gets transferred back there, and that was what they told him to do. So to me, that's another disturbing story. But, I'm not a cop anymore, and I have no say in what goes on in the police department out here. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm clear, I never worked for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. I work back east. So everybody knows the history on that, and I'll be talking more about it on a podcast. So 24 minutes, I want to get some more stuff out, and then I'm going to shut this thing down because my voice is going, because these stinking allergies out here are terrible, and I don't take nothing. I don't even take an aspirin, okay? I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. There's not even a bottle of aspirin in my apartment. I very rarely get sick, but when I do, I just, tough it out, and then it dissipates. But these allergies are terrible. I never had allergies till I moved to Vegas back in 1993. Progressively every year, they get worse, worse. And at night, it's 20, 49 hours out here now. And at night, they seem to get worse for something. I got the window open, so because I don't have the air conditioning on, because I don't need it on right now. Anyway, you don't care about that. So let me get back to what I was doing over here. I'm getting off track here. I want to show something here. Okay. Okay, let me put this on the screen here, and I'll tell you what it is. There's too many freaking papers here. Okay, let's do this. Okay. Then, Jim, what are we looking at here? You're looking at this was last week when they had the NFL draft out here and everything, I guess. This was in USA Today, the newspaper. And that's obviously NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. Now, the guy next to him, who looks like he's auditioning for a part as a mental patient in a movie, is none other than former Las Vegas Metro Police Detective Lawrence Rinetti, but they didn't identify it. They called him a fan. Let me get back myself on the screen. Why am I talking about this? Well, I'm not going to put myself on the... Yeah, I will. Hang on a second. Let me get this up here. Let me put this over here. And, okay. Back in... Let me get a little clip thing going here so you can see what I'm talking about here. Okay? And I'm just going to leave me up in the corner there. Back in October 2019, October 21st of 2019, I broke the story. The Baltimore Post-Examiner, who I was writing for at the time, did over 350 stories for them. We broke the story, again, October 21st, 2019, and it was titled Las Vegas Metro Police Detective Lawrence Rinetti, that's Rinetti, arrested on multiple charges. I was the first one in Las Vegas to break that story, and then the other, they found out about it, and they did their story. On November 5th, 2019, let me get this up on the screen here. Not there. Okay. Let it loop. I did a follow-up story, and I'm going to have the links to these two stories in the description section of this podcast, and also the link to episode 113 about the airport cops, so it would be easier to view. And then, like I said, November 5th, 2019, the Baltimore Post-Examiner published my story that was titled, How Las Vegas Metro Police Intelligence, supposed to be intelligence detectives, the intelligence squad, criminal intelligence squad, collared Detective Lawrence Rinetti. And I use that term all the time because if you're not in police work, collar means you made an arrest, and I put that in my title. So that was November of 2019. Now, Mr. Rinetti is facing 40-plus charges, and his trial is coming up in September. So why am I talking about that? I'll tell you in a second. Mr. Rinetti subsequently resigned from the Las Vegas Metro Police Department, so he's not a detective. He was assigned to a federal, joint federal police task force, I think with the marshals or something, and he got himself, allegedly, because he's, allegations, he's charged with all those, you can see it go backtrack on the video, you can see 40 criminal charges. Like I said, his scheduled trial is coming up in September of this year. My throat's killing me because of the allergies, so sometimes it's hard to talk. Anyway, this guy Rinetti, and this is kind of funny, but it's not. But police sources are telling me, who know this guy, he's bragging that he was offered several plea deals by the district attorney's office. In other words, take a plea deal, and they'll get rid of a bunch of charges, and you don't go to trial. And basically, he's telling cops, he's told them basically, F you, he's not taking any plea deal, I'm going to beat the case. He thinks he could beat the case, and that he's going to trial. So that's what I've been told by sources. His attorney, just so you know, in that case, is a guy by the name of Tony Segro, S-G-R-O, and his partner in the law firm is David Rogers, who's the attorney, represents the Las Vegas Police Protective Association. And Rogers, years ago, was a former district attorney, and there's a whole bunch of stories about him back then, but now he resigned years ago and resigned from the district attorney's office, and now he's the general counsel for the Las Vegas Police Protective Association. And he has his own law firm, Segro, Rogers, and his partner Segro is defending Rinetti. And I was told yesterday, day before, from a cop that his other guy that was involved in this is someone that got charged on other charges. He's being defended by David Rogers, who's the general counsel for the Police Protective Association. Why am I saying that? Because to me it just seems, who's paying for all this stuff? The Police Protective Association or these guys out of their pocket, I believe. So anyway, who knows, okay? Anyway, like I said, Rinetti's telling people he's not taking a plea deal. He's going to go to trial, thinks he can beat it. And he's also commenting, I think this is really funny, that this is what I'm hearing from people who know this guy, is that he thinks it was a setup. Now, this is kind of funny, okay? Because he once had an argument with Sheriff Lombardo about the length of his beard when he was assigned to this joint federal task force. I guess this long biker-type beard because they were going after, felons and whatever he was doing on the task force. And I guess Lombardo told him to cut it or trim it, and he got into a big argument with him. So he's telling people that maybe I was set up because Lombardo set me up for those charges, which is, in my opinion, a corrupt, documented liar, Sheriff Joe Lombardo. He has done more than his share of cover-ups and, like I said before, malfeasance and misfeasance while in office. But I doubt even that buffoon can set somebody up for multiple felony charges. But anyway, I think that's kind of funny that this guy is saying it. But you know what? It may not be that funny. And, don't discount Rinetti's claims, from what I'm told, that he thinks he may beat the case if he goes to trial. And what has he got to lose? If he's not taking a plea deal, you're going to go to trial. And it's a crapshoot. You don't know what juries are going to do. But ladies and gentlemen, if you're not familiar with Las Vegas, a few years back, I think in 2018 or something, we had a former SWAT commander lieutenant who was charged with felonies, exploitation, theft, and filing false documents. And he went to trial. And I can mention his name because in February of 2019, the jury found him not guilty. They convicted the other conspirators that were in this case with him, whatever it was, elder abuse and something like that, exploitation of elder. But he was charged with 3 felonies: exploitation, theft, and filing false documents. He went to trial, and the jury came back and found him not guilty. Now he's retired, I believe. He's obviously not cop anymore. But I'm just saying. So Rinetti's like doing a crapshoot, saying I'm going to go to trial. You don't know how these things work out. And there was another thing I was going to talk about in a podcast. It was a couple of months ago, I believe. There was another police officer earlier this year, the end of last year, who was charged. The Metro did the investigation on him, and it had something to do, I think, off the top of my head, I don't remember the guy's name, but with stolen property or something with his family. And they end up firing the guy, and they actually criminally charged him. But when it went to the district attorney's office, the DA's office declined to prosecute because, in essence, from what I hear from my sources, it was a very poor bullshit case that they made, and they knew they could never bring it to trial. So, prosecutors won't go to trial unless they think there's a chance they're going to win. So there's a lot of stuff, going on in the police department. So anyway, I just want to get that out. I think I covered everything, and I cover everything. I got tons of stuff coming out on more stuff coming out on Lombardo, McMahill, and the massacre. Other cops that didn't do their job. Everybody's talking about Cordell Hendricks. I broke the story on Cordell Hendricks. He was the coward cop that stayed on the 31st floor while people were getting slaughtered and wounded, including cops, and didn't do anything till after the firing stopped. Didn't do anything. Just went in the stairwell and stayed there for an hour until with his partner and 3 armed Mandalay-based security supervisors, and nobody did nothing. Well, the firing didn't even attempt to do anything, and they just stayed in the stairwell till the ad hoc SWAT team came with Levi Hancock. And just so earlier, I mentioned Captain Joshua Bitsko. Okay, I'm told that he knows about us not doing nothing with these guys working for, and that may be true. I mean, I'm telling you what sources are telling me. But Joshua Bitsko, back during the Las Vegas massacre in 2017, October 1st, 2017, he was Canine Sergeant Joshua Bitsko. That's the same gentleman. And he was part of Levi Hancock's ad hoc team he put together because his SWAT team wasn't there. And so anyway, and I did stories on it, and I commended these guys. Even though they went in an hour and 5 minutes after the last shots were fired, still, they had no idea if anybody was still going to be in that room or not. And anyway, I'm going to talk more about that as we're close to this October. It's 5 years, and I'm not using the word anniversary because that's a disgusting term to use when 58 people, now 60, two more people died after, from their injuries. So you got 60 people as a result of the massacre, and then 400 or 500 people were wounded. But this October will be 5 years, and there's a lot of stuff coming out. I understand there's another documentary coming out by a filmmaker and stuff on the massacre and stuff like that. So, but anyway, that was Joshua Bitsko, and I commended all those guys. They did a good job that night. They had no idea what was going on when they were going into that room. And let me just clarify real quick. When he breached the door, Levi Hancock, with the explosives, and that team started going in, there was one SWAT officer. They started to come in about that time, and one did go into the room with them. That was a guy that had the accidental discharge, and I think there was a sniper on the floor down the hall, so they started coming in. But when he formed the team, because they weren't there yet, he was picking officers, and I have some stories coming out on that. Like one guy decided he wasn't going to go with him when he was asking, I'm putting a team together. Some guy, anyway, I'm going to get into all that. This is the stuff that you haven't heard ever, because Lombardo and McMahill never wanted this stuff to come out, but it's going to come out as we get close to the Las Vegas massacre. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, my voice is about shot. I don't know what's going on with these freaking allergies, but my voice it's terrible and it's hard to talk. So anyway, we got this out, more stuff coming out and everything like that with Metro, and I got more stuff coming out on the Sabella stuff and the massacre, and people wanted me to talk about things that I was involved in when I was a cop. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't like talking about, war stories. Cops get together and they just BS. They blow things out of proportion. They make themselves bigger than what they are. I don't like doing that, but I was involved in a lot of stuff when I was a cop. I worked years undercover, and I got a lot of interesting cases that I worked that I'm going to talk about. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and I'm not going to get into this now. I want to shut this down in 37 minutes, but I arrested an FBI agent when I was on patrol. And there's not a whole lot of cops in this country who actually arrested an active duty FBI agent. But I did when I was in plain clothes. I was in a patrol. I got promoted into the plain clothes unit before I became detective investigator. And I'll talk about this in another podcast, but in essence, it was obstruction of justice. He was a female cop that was requesting backup, and I got there, and she was arresting one guy. This guy was interfering, told him to lay off. Anyway, long story short, I didn't know when I arrested him. He turned out to be an FBI agent at a headquarters out of Washington. And this, I'll talk about this more on other podcasts. I did an undercover operation with the Drug Enforcement Administration, a Group 3 PCP task force back in the 80s. And I could have been killed because of the stupidity of two FBI agents. And I was doing a chemical transfer of precursor chemical for the manufacturer PCP, Piperdine, to two really bad guys who were known manufacturers of PCP. Anyway, I get into that, and two FBI agents that didn't listen to what they were told blew the surveillance, and this guy's brother was counter surveillance with his family and saw them in the car, and in the middle of the transfer, he rolls up, and the whole thing just got ugly. And anyway, I get into that whole thing, but there's stories like that I don't consider those BS war stories. Those are things that actually happened to me when I was a cop. I worked undercover. I was a detective. I worked undercover narcotics for many years, and so I got a lot of stuff that's not BS. And a lot of people are asking me talk about the DuPont kidnapping case. And that was something that happened after I was fired by the sheriff in subordination because I testified that exculpatory evidence, and about it's in the beginning of every podcast. That was in 1992, those film clips. Ed Bradley from Street Stories, the spinoff from 60 Minutes, Inside Edition. That was all from 1992. And I basically got fired for insubordination, for failing to keep my mouth shut, because me and my attorney were all over the papers talking about this while I was still a cop. I wasn't one of these guys that got fired and comes back with BS stories and like disgruntled. I was fighting a corrupt sheriff and prosecutor and captains who were protecting their own ass at my expense. And William Douglas Carter was released from prison after almost 5 years on attempted murder charge. And because of my testimony and testimony of corroborating witnesses, and then he was retried in the summer of 1992, and he was found not guilty. And so I got into that. And in the middle of all that, and I'm not going to get into it, I'll just say it here because people keep asking about it. It was around the end of May, beginning of June of 1992, the FBI asked me to infiltrate a group of men who were planning to kidnap an heir and his wife of the DuPont chemical fortune, the DuPont Corporation fortune. And I got involved in that because there was a lieutenant at the police department who approached me after I lost my job. Anyway, it's a pretty involved story. I immediately called up the FBI. The FBI was doing a corruption probe with the sheriff's office. And anyway, it's a long freaking story, but I did go undercover for the FBI for several months. And that's another thing I could talk about. But, all this other stuff cops talk about. I remember when I did this, we punched this guy, we hit that guy. I could sit here for 10 years, and every cop can, and tell you every fight, everything that you ever got involved in. But people want to hear about criminal investigations and things that I've done when I was undercover and when I was a cop, why I lost my job for testifying to the truth. How can you lose your job? Well, you can when you have a corrupt sheriff, okay, and everybody's against you. But at least Mr. Carter was released, given a new trial, and found not guilty. They withheld exculpatory evidence. Do I know the guy was innocent or guilty? I don't know. I just knew that they had withheld evidence and then went after me to keep my mouth shut, and I didn't. And it's all over the internet, and I'll talk about that and some other stuff. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, it's 41 minutes. I'm going to shut this thing down. Just want to say this again. When I talk about police officers, either in this department or any other department, it's like I said, and the majority of cops are excellent police officers. They do their job, like I said, and they go home and they go to work. But when you have these cops who abuse their authority, commit misconduct, corrupt cops who break the law while they're police officers or use their badge and their authority, and I say cops, I'm talking from sheriffs all the way down to the bottom. Supervision, upper chain of command, brass, all the way down the bottom. When you use your badge and your authority for your own personal gain, either to make you look better or to make the department look better or to cover up for friends who are doing criminal acts that other cops would lose their job for, that's when I talk about it, because that is a bunch of BS. And when stuff like that happens, it affects every other police officer or deputy sheriff, whatever law enforcement agency it happens to occur on. It affects every law enforcement. It actually affects every law enforcement officer in the country, especially today with social media. One cop does something wrong, it affects all the police. And all police are not corrupt, okay? There's plenty of police officers, and including on the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. The majority of the cops that I know now, that I work with 30 years, 20-something years in the casino business, the tourist safety detectives and all the different divisions that we helped and we assist with cases and stuff, they were all good guys. And yeah, there are some scumbags that were on Metro, and there are some scumbags that are still on Metro, okay, that shouldn't be cops. And but it's not every freaking cop. And we're going to get more into that as I talk about in podcasts. There's a lot of history with a lot of these guys. Cops who were involved with gamblers, cops who committed burglaries, and all this stuff that I'm hearing over the years, and even more so now in the past couple of months, because everybody's talking about a bunch of stuff. Well, how did this guy make captain? And, he said he burglarized a hotel room years ago and said he did this, and he really had all this stuff that's going on. So we're going to talk about a lot of this stuff, but I'm also going to talk about, my experience as a cop, and, what I did in cases and stuff like that, because that is my background for almost 40 years is conducting investigations. And not only as a police officer, but a detective in the private sector, and now as an investigative journalist. So listen, it's 21:09. It's 9:09 p.m. Pacific time. We're in the desert of Las Vegas, Nevada. My name is Doug Poppa, the audio podcast people. That's why I talk about a lot of stuff that I put on the screen, because the audio podcast people cannot see what I'm posting up on the on the screen. So remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel by hitting the red subscribe button. Audio podcasts, a big one, Spotify, iHeartRadio. If you want to put some on my PayPal account, remember I work by myself, independent. Office supplies, paper, pens, all this stuff costs money. Research for databases all costs money, comes out of my Social Security check. PayPal.me/Doug Poppa, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening.